Welcome back to Perfect Pour. I'm your host and spirit medium, Terry Collins. My favorite part of the program, we get to talk taste. And with me to do so tonight is our director and producer, Jerry Donahue, and we're going to talk bargain bourbons.
Yes, scotches can be very expensive, as we know. Even good Irish whiskey can be a little bit pricey, but generally in this country, bourbon is pretty reasonably priced. There are some that are more expensive, but what we're looking at is various bourbons that are between $20 and $30. You can get them for other ones for less than $20, but that's another segment.
And in this range, the $20 to $30 range, we've got quite a variety of styles here within bourbon. We have small batch, we have straight bourbon, and we even have a single barrel. So you can get a lot of variety in that $20 to $30 price range. And it's not typically what we consider to be craft. These are made by large distillers, but it's craft-like in that they are doing things with their small batches and limited releases. So there's a lot there to try, and it's very interesting, and there's a lot of variety, as I mentioned.
Craft bourbon distillers, their products tend to be a little bit more expensive than $30 because they're handmade, they're made in smaller numbers, so they have to charge a little bit more for them. But these are good examples of what you can get for under $30.
And again, there are good examples here. We have the straight bourbon whiskeys. Then the next step up from there, we have the small batch, which, as stated, they blend from a small number of barrels. There's no definitive definition of what small batch means, but I think most distillers try to keep it under 100 barrels, some under 80, and even fewer than that. And then we have single barrel, which is, as it says, it comes from one barrel, and that's all you get, and there's no adulteration to it other than getting it to their final proof, adding water to it to get to that point. So again, in this range, you've got quite a variety. And I think we want to kick off our first tasting with some Buffalo Trace.
Let's start with the Buffalo Trace.
And very accessible bourbon, very popular bourbon. At one time or another, it was hard to find. I don't know how they're doing with meeting demand now, but it's popular for a reason. Price and your bang for your buck, as we call it. You get a really decent straight bourbon whiskey at an affordable price.
Yeah, usually, of course, it depends on your retailer and the area you live in, but usually around $25 a bottle, which is very reasonable price. As you said, it's very popular. Sometimes it can be hard to find because they can only produce so much. We guessed at 6 years old, maybe somewhere around there. There's no age statement on it, but probably around that. So they can only put it out when it's ready.
Right, and I think that's pretty accurate. Generally, if you've got something a bit older, they're going to try to put that number on the bottle because it looks good.
Yeah. Everything we're going to taste with water. So you may prefer it neat, but it takes water very well.
It does take water. These all take water very well because I believe they're all overproof. I believe they're all over 80%. I believe.
Yes,
I think that's right. And that gives you the opportunity to add a little water, just even a little splash, and they're strong enough to stand up to that and have a full flavor come through. And it is a different taste experience with water versus without, and you definitely do want to try that just to get the full range.
So what do you think of the nose on this, Terry?
Well, I have to tell you, one thing that I typically get from, especially the overproof bourbons and scotch sometimes as well, I always get sort of an ammonia, a little bit of the alcohol. And for me, that registers sort of as ammonia, and I get that high. There's one thing my fabulous producer-director introduced me to is smelling at different levels of the glass. Your nose low versus your nose high gives you different things. And for me, the nose high in the glass, I tend to pick out initially the ammonia. Now, again, we've added water to this, so that's toned down some. And what really jumps out to me now is that vanilla sweetness that's really the hallmark of bourbon.
Yeah, I get the vanilla. I do get the alcohol. It has a nose that's a little bit hot. When I nose it higher on the glass, I get a little bit of cinnamon notes as well.
Cinnamon, a little clove.
Yeah, a little clove too. Definitely has a rye taste to it. I wouldn't call it a high rye bourbon, but it definitely has that rye character. You get that
the spiciness.
Spiciness.
It definitely comes through, and I'm glad that we've got something to counter that later. We do have a wheated bourbon, but this one, the rye definitely does stand out And I'm a big rye person, so I tend to love that. I love that aspect of it. This I also get some burnt sugar, caramelized sugar, which is very striking for me. I really like that.
And I get some dark chocolate notes in there with the more of that cinnamon, that
Very
clove.
cinnamon. That rye aspect to it, along with the spiciness, the clove nature of it also calls to mind cinnamon for me. And as I mentioned, the caramel, and I get a lot of action on the front of my tongue and in the middle. A medium finish.
I would definitely say a medium finish as well. A little bit of burn. There's almost more alcohol in the nose than there is in the finish for me.
Yeah, the nose sets me up to expect something like
Right.
that, but it kind of tails off there, and I'm getting this time I'm getting a little bit of licorice in there too.
What are your overall thoughts on this?
Considering the price range for this, it's a very accessible bourbon. If you're just stepping up to or getting to the point of thinking about craft or limited release, again, this is a straight bourbon whiskey, so there are no adjuncts. It's nice because there's a challenge to it. You get a full amount of flavor, and again, we're doing this with water, and it stands up to that very well. I think there's enough here to enjoy this, even if you're an experienced bourbon drinker.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's popular too. I think it cuts across a broad range of, connoisseurs and people who are just moving into more higher end bourbons, because it's got a lot to offer. The flavor profile offers enough for anyone. And again, it changes when you add water, which we've done, and you get something different out of it if you have it neat.
It definitely has that rye taste to it, but it's not overly sweet. You get some of those cinnamon and clove notes in it, and just overall, I can understand why it's popular, because it's a very respectable and rounded bourbon
At a very good price.
at a very good price.
Which makes it really something to look for. And people do. That's why they have had trouble keeping up with demand in the past.
Yes. Okay.